My name is Daniel. I'm 22 years old and my story's yet to be told. I'm trying to write it down so you can read what I've been through. When I first turned 18, I got myself a car with all the money that I'd saved up from my past birthdays. The car was nothing special, but it got me where I needed to go, with occasional minor issues. I applied for a job at a factory, which I really regretted after my first day. My weekly payout was terrible. My boss was a terrible Japanese man who didn't speak a word of English, and my colleagues were all snitches. This factory that I used to work for had cameras everywhere. Their excuse was that the cameras were there because they would have something to show the police if there were ever be a break-in. Yeah, right. They were using those cameras to monitor our every move. After working there for what seemed like centuries, I finally got the money to rent a house in a shady neighborhood in Los Angeles. Anything would be better than living with my abusive relatives. I only came out during the daytime because when nighttime would fall upon us, all the thugs pretty much came out to do their thing, like drug deals, bothering innocent people, sometimes even shootings. I'd always go to bed early so I didn't have to listen to the conversations they'd be having, or the echo of police sirens in the distance. These thugs did bother me when I would sometimes be on my way back home from the supermarket some evenings. They would threaten me, call me white trash, telling me to get out of their neighborhood. The list goes on and on. There was always an elderly woman standing at the bus stop just opposite my house. She told me not to worry about these people. I found her kind of unnerving. She always told me that I'll be there soon. I ignored her most of the time due to the fact that she was creepy. She always gave off a foul odor and a crooked smile. This house I rented had some pretty weird things to it. Eventually, when I would wake up, some things would not be in their original place where I'd put them. Things disappearing, the list just goes on and on. I would always think it had been someone breaking into my home, but that would have been ridiculous, as there were really never signs of a break-in. I remember waking up one night to the sound of water coming from my bathroom faucet. I got out of bed, checked every corner of the house, and I would not find a single sign to how this could have happened. Not one sign. Things started to take a turn for the worse as the week progressed. I always remember locking my front and back door, as well as the windows, which would be common sense to most of you. I'd always close every single door in the house, then finding some of them open the next morning. I never really believed in the paranormal though, so I didn't blame the scary ghosts. I was pretty shocked as to how this kind of activity could occur. I asked the owner of the house if he'd ever experienced some crazy stuff like this. Of course, he didn't give a proper answer, and just tried to comfort me by telling me it's probably my mind playing tricks on me, and that I would sometimes forget to close the door behind me when I would go to bed. Shortly after, he labelled me as a crazy individual. The owner of this house was never nice to me. Strange disappearances of my items kept occurring, so I decided I should get some cameras. Of course, I didn't have the money for fancy expensive surveillance camera services, like the ones you'd see in Paranormal Activity. I was stupid enough to spend money on things that I didn't need, as the money could have been better used for at least a few cheap cameras. But these things that I don't need luckily had cameras. I'm talking about my iPhone, iPod and iPad. So my plan was to make the devices record overnight while they would be plugged into their chargers so they wouldn't run out of battery. As night approached, I grabbed these devices and would put them in the spots where most of my items would keep on disappearing. My iPad in the kitchen, my iPod in the living room to see how my items could vanish, and my iPhone in the hallway to see what would keep opening my doors. The option to place my cameras where I wanted were limited due to the fact that I only had 3 of them. I finally hit the big red dot on all of the screens to get them to recording. I had a struggle with placing them correctly to get a full view of every room, but after a while, I got them all in the proper position, except for my iPad. I went to bed maybe a few minutes after I made my devices start recording. I was lying in bed maybe 5 minutes, until I heard a door opening downstairs. I was scared and excited at the same time, considering I finally had some footage to see who or what had been doing this. Shortly after I heard a door opening downstairs, I heard something fall and shatter onto the floor. My heart was racing. Shortly after, I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke to go up and check on my devices to see if they were still recording. They were all still recording. Good. One thing caught my eye while I was picking them up. My iPad was lying with the screen aiming down at the floor. I picked up my iPad and shook it off, and just telling myself that it probably fell down considering it was in a bad position. The screen was fine. It was still recording. I tapped the button to make it stop. I captured 8 hours of footage on all the devices. After extracting every clip onto my computer, I started reviewing them. And I saw something that I didn't want to see. Coming from the door that led into my garage was the creepy elderly woman who had always been standing in the bus stop just opposite my house. I noticed my clock was 10:25 PM. She proceeded to go and sit on my sofa, talking some kind of gibberish to herself, pretty loudly. I was surprised I was never woken by this. After sitting on the couch for 2 long hours, she stood up and started making her way over to the kitchen. She noticed my iPad recording her. She approached the device and stared creepily into the camera lens, looking into the lens for 5 minutes. She knocked over a glass and my iPad. Luckily, she didn't notice my iPod recording her walking into the living room again and back into the garage. After that, she no longer came out of the garage. I was in total shock. I didn't even dare set foot in my garage. I immediately moved out of this house. I now knew how my items had been disappearing and how my doors kept opening. I live with my girlfriend now. I only just realized. She said I'll be there soon. Thanks for sticking around to the end. And if you enjoyed today's story, make sure to leave a like. And if you want more like it, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. If you need more now, why not check out my Creepypasta playlist? I'll leave that on this card, and I'll catch you in the next story.